This episode of Simone Loves Hour is sponsored by TDS Accounting and Tax Services, where we provide a wide range of services. We provide accounting services tailored to your specific business needs. We also provide personal and business tax services. So give us a call today at 202-299-4082. Again, 202-299-4082 to set up an appointment today.
There's no love like a mother's love. Speaking from the heart, a mother guides her children through life as she tries to protect them from the world. This heartwarming, rhyming story will paint mom in a new light, telling children that their mother cares and love knows no bounds. Written by Simone Harris, A Mother's Love, available now on Amazon.com. We step into the new year. I think it's time for some new music. Simone Love Presents. It's proud to introduce 2 new songs from her new Love album, It's All About Love, featuring Mr. Harris, aka Old Man Izzo's new release, Us, and Simone Love's You Make Me Feel So Whole, coming February 2023 to most streaming networks.
So happy and good inside.
Hello, and welcome to Simone Love's Reality Radio, where we'll be hearing uncut, uncensored conversations about prison love, mental health, addiction, wrongful convictions, and much, much more. I'm your host, Simone Love. Thank you for tuning in, and please enjoy the show.
Listen up, listen in, listen in. Tell your mom, tell a friend, tune 'em in. Listen up, listen in, listen in. Tell your mom, tell a friend, tune 'em in. Love, 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 love. The Simone Love Show. Love, 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 love. The Simone Love Show.
My son has been incarcerated for over a decade now, after being sentenced to 12 life terms for a non-life-taking crime. This journey, our journey, and our quest for his freedom through activism and criminal justice reform, I've come across numerous inmates. Since they face seclusion from the world, we decided to start recording our calls. Most times, we forget the recording is on, and this is how we created Simone Love's Reality Radio, Dead from Society, Alive for Profit, Voices of the Incarcerated. Today, we are here at the Veterans Services Accountability Convention. It's time for us to claim our honor. It's time to stand up for our families, our communities, our country. We have been quiet for too long. You have a voice. United, our voices will be heard. Today, here, February the 18th, at the Newcastle Library in Newcastle, Delaware, hosted by Mr. Joseph Walls. And we want to thank Mr. Joseph Walls for taking his time to gather and put this convention together. He's doing such a wonderful job of fighting a good fight. Today on the agenda for the Accountability Convention, we will be discussing Veterans Rights Act. All veterans gave some veterans gave all. Those returning from war with PTSD or TBI, our walking wounded warriors, do have problems adjusting to society. Some walking wounded warriors commit offenses because of their injuries, resulting in arrests, prosecution, and prison sentences. These warriors, their service to our country, have earned the right to special consideration by our criminal justice system. Veterans need a Bill of Rights that will protect their rights to affirmative defenses, to treatment at veterans hospitals, and diversion to VA treatment hospitals and facilities rather than prison. Other topics of discussion include Civil Rights Act. Are you aware that Delaware is one of the last states without a separately identifiable state civil rights act? The state rights that Delaware citizens have are spread among various statutes and agencies and are not uniformly enforceable. Federal courts cannot enforce a citizen's state's rights. Delaware state's courts are not eager to do so or cannot do so. Without a Delaware State Civil Rights Act, our citizens are prevented from enforcing their rights under Delaware state law. We need a state civil rights act that will provide aggrieved citizens a means to enforce their rights in state courts comparable to 42 U.S.C. 1983. Other topics: Criminal Justice Integrity Act. This act is very important. Justice is not served by perpetuating aberrations in the law. Once the arrest, prosecution, and sentencing of offenders is completed, there needs to be a means to correct subsequently exposed injustices. Our state courts have failed to do so. The Attorney General's office has failed to do so. The Public Defender's office has failed to do so. The Office of Civil Rights and Public Trust should be established as an independent office of the Criminal Justice Integrity Ombudsman. Other topics will be Judicial Official Integrity Act, Parole Reinstatement Act, Equitable Treatment Act, Restorative Justice Act, Access to Courts Act, Informed Citizens Act, and lastly, Inmate Family Protection Act. There is no independent authority to receive, investigate, and correct abuse or misconduct directed towards inmates or their families. The Criminal Justice Council and the Council on Corrections are both limited to only an advisory role to the Department of Corrections operations. Nothing they recommend has to be implemented by the Department of Corrections. Department of Corrections has become too big, unwieldy, and preoccupied with security to the detriment of inmates and their families. We should transfer rehabilitation duties to the Department of Health and Social Services, and we should strengthen and enact the Office of Corrections Ombudsperson legislation. Today, we're going to actually hear from a real live inmate, Mr. Kendall Smith, who would have benefited from this Inmate Family Protection Act. A gentleman who was abused and pepper sprayed by correctional officers in Smyrna, Delaware, and was ultimately charged with assaulting these guards when he was the victim. But after this break, we're going to hear highlights and the voices of those who were present at the accountability convention. So make sure you keep it locked right here. We'll be right back.
Run that shit back, Eli.
When I look in the mirror, my expression seems so unreal. Hey, I can't believe how happy I feel
my friend. My love for you is hard to conceal.
It's written all over my face. How happy you make me feel. I love you. Check this out.
You make me feel so you make me feel so happy and good inside. You make me feel so I'm so happy and I know why. When you first asked me to marry you, it was just like a fairy tale. The way you kneeled on one knee and presented me with my ring.
At first I had uncertainty, and I don't know why. But now I am very clear of the love I have for you, my dear black man. Check this out.
You make me feel so you make me feel so happy and good inside.
Because then you have another female that has 3 kids that is being locked up because she didn't want to tell a whole story with that person to get him locked up how he was supposed to, and they went off the hearsay. So there's a lot of like negative. It shouldn't be going on like this for the kids that's growing up, because I feel like basically now the younger generation is being replaced with the ones that they're letting out, so they can have some type of replacement. So it's a lot of stuff that should not be going on within the system that we're supposed to trust. And they're not even doing right by us, not just by our people, but by everybody. The prisons are really overflowed with people. It should not be that 3 people to a room.
Yeah, and that's true. In terms of what I also think it starts with like sentencing and stuff like that. A lot of younger people and older people don't feel like they have the resources, the funds to have attorneys. So a lot of people know they can properly beat their cases, take it to trial, but they settle to take a plea. Now you're in there for 15 years for something that you could have already been home for. So I think that's a big thing too, is people not being like knowledgeable of, laws and all
Again,
that.
if your loved one is
Yeah,
arrested, charged,
Right.
whatever, with a crime,
yeah,
and they cannot afford a lawyer,
Yeah.
they get a public defender.
Workplace.
Excuse me, who does the public defender work
The
for?
state.
The state,
They
not
all work together.
public.
They all work together
No matter what. So if you have information that will help your loved one, you almost have to put it in a box, shiny paper on it, and a big red bow
Right.
on top of it, and hand it to the public defender
Right.
to say, this is my loved one's case.
Okay.
He was here at the
Be home soon, or she'll be home soon. And that's not true, because a lot of my friends are really watching our friends that we grew up with die in jail from cancer. They didn't go in there with that. How did they get it? They don't owe us nothing. They belong to the state. They don't have to tell us anything. That's not fair. You know what I'm saying? It's just so much, and it's not fair, but something has to be done because it's too many people, and it's just only going to get worse if nothing doesn't happen.
Exactly.
But it doesn't just take one person or all of us in this room. It's going to take more than that. Because they're going to look at us like, well, who are you? And you know what I'm saying? You didn't go to law school. You're right, I did it.
as I stated,
They made me go through a secretary.
Yeah,
I went through that though, but I went through the secretary, and I ended up getting all the way up until his last name was like Dunn or something, the same as mine. I talked to him personally. He told me there's nothing I can do. If you feel as though you want to do something about it, then you need to talk to him and he needs to direct you. How is he going to talk to you and he only gets a 15-minute call?
okay,
How does that work? The lawyer calls that they're supposed to get for free. You take advantage of that too. He has to put his lawyer on his head. So it's just a lot of
Tally, right?
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Howard, right?
Yeah. can follow the right steps, but they're going to do what they want to do. And if they feel as though they don't have to listen to you or you are nobody, they're going to treat you just like that. And it's like,
If you have not stepped out of line,
right, yeah,
if you have not stepped
you
out
can't
of
do that
line,
because then you give them what they want.
exactly.
And they have no reason to respond.
And again, if you've gone up as far as you can go and it doesn't go anywhere, okay, I didn't say this out loud.
See,
Go to the newspaper.
That's the issue.
what?
Lori, that's the issue. You go as far as you go, and then what? That's what you asked, right? And that's what we're here talking about. We're talking about building something that is going to be responsive to the people's needs. You got the ACLU, where the hell they at? And NAACP, I'm a lifetime member, but where are they at? Okay? You got Delaware Center for Justice, where are they at? And they're all getting millions of dollars in grant money and whatever else they're getting, right? And that's why we're working on two fronts. One is we're getting houses, rehabilitating them, renting them out. We're using that income to underwrite what we're doing here. Putting this thing together cost me almost $2,000. That's out of my pocket. I don't want donations. I never ask for donations. Because if I get donations, then I owe somebody. So I'm not going down that road. We're going to build this slowly. All right? We want it to have an effect in the 2020 election. I believe that we got noticed in the 2020 election. And supported people to turn down voters. And in 24 is where we really going to be focused. That's where we're going to need your help. That's where it's going to be time to start hitting the street and let these legislators know that if they don't come through for us, then we're going to get rid of them. And you can do that. It's not that hard to do. I mean, advocacy is hard to do on your own. But when you have other people that are willing and able to support you, then that's the way you have to go. Delaware, for some reason, has never had a vibrant anything. Especially out of regular people. You know, I mean, nobody even knows there's a criminal justice system. So one of the family members gets locked up. You know, and then you understand what is really going on. And that's what we're going to try to solve. One of the problems we have is in advocacy. I'm trying to light a little bit because we got a guy that's supposed to be coming in from prison to talk to. I was looking at an organization in New York City called the Fortune Society. And that was started by prisoners inside the prison system. They started mentoring other people that got out of prison, and they took their philosophy to the street, started buying up, starting businesses, and getting places for people to live, and starting programs of their own, so that they're starting in the prison, and when the guys come out, they got an existing structure for you to go into that's going to support you, really support you. And, you know, we have to, there's a lot of money floating around for people coming out of jail. But there's nothing for people in jail.
Right.
There's nothing to keep people from going to jail. And that's what we have to do. We have to begin to, you know, kind of like broaden the conversation a little bit. Because, you know, if it's your case, and your case, and your case, and your case, and her case, everybody's case, individually, we get lost. We have to learn how to address these issues collectively so that there's a structural change in the way people think and provide services. And that's severely lacking. Before we move on, I did want to give a plug to Honcho because he's got this, the guy's a fabulous artist. And he has a art showing.
March 3rd.
A fine art showing. Was it March the 3rd?
March 3rd.
Yeah, I'm going to post it on my
It's on, let's set it down, it's on the website. It's going to be, I think, 2411 Lancaster Place.
Yeah. That'd be something good just to
But
go. just to go to be able to support it.
Let me say that, everybody get that. Yeah.
One of the things I would like to do is, I'm old. Right. There is a bill in the state. It was introduced by Senator Vick and several other legislators. But they have to go to the office and fund it. That's what we're asking them to create an office. That an ombudsman is a person that you can go to complain about a government agency or somebody like that, and then they would have independent authority to go investigate your complaint.
That sounds like a good.
There's a lot of states have it. And we need one for the prison system, we need one for the court system. Because these people, almost by necessity, operate in secret. So it's like impossible to find out what the hell they're doing. You're gonna try to get the records from the records, these are public records.
Yeah.
For God's sake, you should.
So that I ran for a little bill. Didn't get it, but I was asked by the Senator representative, that young lady who began her speak to be the president of the community in which I live. And all the questions that everybody's asking in here, if you live somewhere, you have a community, please go to your community meetings. All the questions that you're asking in here, they're normally held once a month. I live in the Headfield. I'm responsible, I'm the president, so I'm told to meet and people have these questions. We put the information out there. Your senators are there, your representatives are. So your chief of police, the captain, who I work closely with, all these people that matter. And you want to get your questions to. I mean, the prison system, like you may not be able, like I have my senator helping me now. I have her helping me now. The records.
Dizzy's wonderful, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, I keep missing her coffees. She had a coffee the other day.
Yeah, I had one. It was awesome. But yeah, try no more. I would like to say, try no more. Everybody has. Once you find out who your council person is, it's their responsibility to answer any questions that you may have, especially about your loved ones. We have as a team, our issues. Everybody did. I became a victim. They ran up in my house and look at the settlement. But we have children. You can't control what the kids do all the time. But at the same time, like they were mentioning, go to the right people. Because it's not hard. They go to the meetings, get there, say something. The police officers are there, the public works people, we have an apartment space, whatever issue you have, that's what your community is. And your tax dollars.
We got Christopher Desmond, he's going to talk to you, he's speaking from the inside the prison. On one of the videos, and I'll never find out we're doing this was not dead. Anyway, Chris, go ahead and take it.
Hello, I'm happy to see that everybody made it today. I'm here to discuss a few things that we can all probably agree on, which is the 2023 legislative agenda, which I think you have copies of there. If not, I'll briefly run over some of the things that we requested the legislature take up this year. And the first being that we call TIS sentencing guidelines. TIS was a sentencing structure that was invented to keep people in prison for up to 85% of their time in the early 90s. It was meant to even out the sentencing of individuals for different crimes and had the opposite effect, obviously, because people spend more time in prison now and the sentencing structure itself is all completely out of what it used to be. We ask that the legislature take up to reinstate the parole for individuals after completing up to 30% of the time, make them eligible for parole, and set guidelines for them to obtain that. Something that's not being done now. People in this warehouse in prison for 85% of the time, they're being released. They're returning to the community. Needless to say, recidivism is around 80%. So the purpose of being in prison is supposed to be for rehabilitation and the return of individuals back into society. That is not being accomplished under the current sentencing system. It's just a warehouse individual for 85% of the time, and then return back to society where you deal with them, which could possibly end up in more violent crimes being committed rather than rehabilitate and return back with some kind of structure in their life. So we asked the legislature to take up that, and by repealing that, individuals would be incentivized to rehabilitate themselves in the prison system, would be incentivized to offer rehabilitation to the individual. Because they won't be here housed anymore, this warehousing, and if the prison system doesn't change itself into rehabilitating return, then we also need to change the people in the prison system. The second thing is we need to end consecutive sentencing and stack sentencing. Both of those occur when an individual commits one crime and they convert it into multiple crimes with multiple sentencing. We need to repeal the consecutive sentencing statute and replace it with a concurrent sentencing where all crimes run together from one individual. In other words, they give individuals 3 gun charges when they have 1 gun. They give individuals, like in my case, 5 robberies when there's 1 robbery. And that's all to encourage individuals to waive their right to trials and plead guilty. We eliminated the consecutive sentence and made it all concurrent, and we would have individuals be more active to do other things other than sit around in prison all day and do nothing. The thing that we need to address is people that's been in prison for 30, 40, 45 years serving natural life sentencing. Natural life sentences have long been overdue being held, and individuals should be paroled or eligible for parole after a 25-year sentence into a life sentence. If they're not rehabilitated by then, and somebody isn't doing their job. You have individuals who've been here up to 45 years at up to $80,000 a year is costing the taxpayer. What benefit are you getting from them? That's a question everybody has to answer. Is there a cost benefit for keeping people in prison that long? Some of the individuals in this, with those type of time, man, have actual benefits that could be used in the community rather than being unused in the prison. So it's another issue that has to be addressed. Can you bring parole back for everybody, including the natural life sentence individuals? Pendant of the Federal Judiciary, 1, 2, the Department of Justice. And it needs to be manned by individuals selected by the Delaware General Assembly and the Delaware Bar Association, not associated in any way with the ex-judge or ex-prosecutor, the system that they have in place now where they've never found anyone in any individual case worthy of being vacated. So, we have individuals are in prison now for crimes that they probably shouldn't be here for, they're probably not guilty of, but because there's no independent body to review as you probably know from Simone, Mike Jones, where a judge was caught in a restaurant talking to individuals not even associated with the case, how she was going to punish him because she didn't like his lawyers. So, he was convicted and sentenced as a juvenile for the rest of his life in prison, based because the judge didn't like his lawyers. The next case, Jose Moreno, who was convicted for standing next to a person who was shooting somebody. He didn't have a gun, he didn't shoot anybody, but yet he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to the rest of his life in prison at 25 years old, based on accomplice liability that he had nothing to do with. And there's no way for him to get a review of his conviction because there's no independent review board.
So we just heard from Mr. Christopher Desmond, who is incarcerated and the co-founder of the organization that held this accountability convention today. He talked about some of the legislation that we are trying to impact on the political parties to inform them of some of the changes that need to be made within our judicial system as far as that affects mass incarceration and over sentencings of those who are convicted of specific crimes. Now, I know we heard from Mr. Kendall Smith a few weeks ago on the show, but we also highlighted him at the convention, and we gave him the opportunity to speak to the attendees of the Accountability Convention regarding his issues, and we're going to hear that right now.
Dear community, Accountability Convention, by all means, I intend to exert my attention and appreciation to both those of you that have caused this Accountability Convention to be possible and those of you that have provided me with this opportunity to be a voice for the voiceless. I thank you all. Now, I was recently asked, what do I want the headline or basis of my message to be at this convention? And after some careful consideration, I sent a text back to a special someone in a questionable form. If I did not survive, then I was tasked to critically think as to how my message relates to the purpose of this accountability convention, its topics for discussion, and our overall agenda, that being accountability. I immediately thought of my circumstances. 2 years ago, this month, 3 officers, correctional officers, by the name of Aaron Bianca, Jared Payton, and Kirk Mill, came into my prison cell, purposely covering and hiding their identifications and purposely creating a blind spot so the facility security cameras could not capture them, forcing me into a humiliating strip search, sexually harassing me, and assaulting my completely nude body. This resulted in me not just being completely nude, but also this resulted in me fleeing out of my cell, away from these men, and successfully securing myself in a nearby bar or stall, which helped me from being further assaulted. This was all captured on the facility security cameras. Still, the Department of Corrections personnel intentionally did not hold their officers accountable, but instead falsely criminally charged me with assault second and resisting arrest, which held 0 to 10 years. Consequently, the Department of Corrections took away 3 years of good time and forced me to be at risk of being wrongfully convicted and penalized with an additional 10 years until my sentence. That which followed was continuous acts of retaliation. While awaiting trial at a final case review, the same officers among the officers that attempted on my life escorted me into the courtroom and stood next to me, taunting me and attempting to coerce me into accepting a guilty plea offered by the prosecutor, Samuel B. Kennedy. After placing the judges, prosecutor, and my public defender on notice of the attempts to coerce me into accepting a guilty plea. There was no action for relief provided by any of the judicial parties. This caused me to distrust all judicial parties, as their silence caused me to see them as conspirators on the attempts on my life. As a result, I chose to represent my own case. This month, February 1st, just 17 days ago, I was found not guilty on all charges. So the headline or basis of my message, that question, if I did not survive, resonates when I think or hear the concept of accountability for which this convention is predicated upon. If I did not survive, to the extent that those officers beat me to death, both the Department of Correction, Monroe Hudson, and the Department of Justice, Kathleen Jennings, would have justified the officers unlawfully killing me and would not have held the officers accountable. If I did not survive, to the extent that I did not possess the courage to withstand the Department of Corrections retaliation and the officers' attempt to coerce me into accepting a guilty plea offered by the prosecution, I would have pled guilty out of fear and would have been wrongfully convicted, and the officers would not have been held accountable. If I did not survive to the extent that I could not represent myself because I did not know the law or know how to write or speak, I would not have gained support from the media, ACLU, and others such as yourselves at the convention. And I would not have been able to reveal to you today that both the Department of Correction and the Department of Justice office worked together to not hold the officers accountable by refusing to reveal video evidence to me and the public that incriminates the officers and exonerates me. Still, although I posed the question, if I did not survive, in the past tense, I'm still in a present state of survival as we all are. In fact, this message to you all is indeed my will, just in case I die, because of the imminent threat of death, an attempt on my life remains due to the Department of Corrections and the Department of Justice not holding their officials accountable, and who remain in authoritative positions over my life, limb sentence, and due process as I speak. Excuse me. Moreover, the most valuable and practical lesson that I have learned, and which has caused me to make it thus far, is that you exist. Allies of the same struggle for justice exist, and that I'm not alone, and that support exists in pushing legislation to serve as an enforcer for accountability that can cause me, prisoners, families, and other state residents to have hope and to feel somewhat protected or safe from the many forms of injustices conducted by the very officials who are sworn to protect and serve. In conclusion, if it is indeed our collective agenda to unify as allies, to improve our state's overall mental health and quality of life through the passing of legislation that serves to hold our state and all of its parties accountable, then it becomes each of our individual duties as allies to utilize the critical thinking necessary to help each other understand how our own individual cases of injustice is connected to everyone else's cases of injustice, and how our individual cases of injustices connect to each of the bills and amendments of legislation that we seek to be passed. Each of our individual cases and collective cases of injustices serve as proof as to why these bills and amendment of legislation need to be passed. Although some cases provide more evidence than others, it's our duty to gather them all as a preponderance of evidence that cannot be denied. As an example, my individual case of injustice provides a preponderance of evidence through multiple video evidence of correctional officers unlawfully assaulting my completely new body, along with court transcripts of officers committing perjury, and which further proves that I was falsely charged to cover up the officers' unlawful conduct. I intend for my individual case of injustice to serve as an offer of proof of our collective cases of injustice, and to ultimately serve as proof that is connected to each bill or amendment of legislation, and to serve as proof as to why each bill and amendment of the legislation needs to be passed to serve as a remedy for ensuring accountability. My case is proof that human beings that are labeled prisoners are wrongfully charged, wrongfully convicted, coerced into accepting guilty pleas, even though they are innocent, and as to how the Department of Correction and the Department of Justice intentionally choose not to hold their officials accountable for jeopardizing prisoners' life, limb, sentence, and due process of law. Hence, these are the reasons why topics for discussion pertain to amending Superior Court Criminal Rule 35 and 61, which are motions to address injustices that currently have time bars. So if a prisoner does not write or does not understand law or does not know how to write or fails to have someone to instruct them, the courts will not accept a prisoner's address or filing of a clear injustice because the prisoner didn't file in 30 days or 90 days or a year. That's absurd. Also, topics of discussion pertaining to increasing good time earned, especially considering how, in my case, the Department of Corrections took away 3 years of good time from me, even though I've been found not guilty on all charges. They have yet to restore my good time for which the officers did to me. Also, topics of discussion that pertain to truth in sentencing, natural life statutes, no parole, etc., all of which are issues that are currently designed to eliminate any hope or reason for a prisoner to pursue rehabilitation, and also that are currently designed to keep human beings, just prisoners, who unfortunately did not survive attempts similar to mine, to have no way out. As a result of this, if this does not change, this will continue to cause this disease of hopelessness to spread from prisoner to prisoner, correctional officer to correctional officer, to families of prisoners, to families of correctional officers. Then ultimately, this becomes a super spreader throughout our state of Delaware, where so we all become victims and witnesses to an increase in crime, tension in police and community relations, an increase in inflation and or misallocation of state funds, etc. So this is the purpose of this convention, and much more. So let us come together as allies and offer our proof of our individual cases, mine being the videos and court transcripts. Also, the proof of our unity, such as showing up for conventions like this. And we must know and duly note that we are the proof. We are the proof. Our collective cases of injustices are the proof. Now let's gather this evidence in ourselves so there can be no denial to our charges to the state to task and consider these topics for discussion, bills and amendments of legislation that serves to improve the overall mental health and quality of life of our entire state of Delaware. Again, I thank you all, and I greet you all in peace. Thank you.
He caught up with a woman, and he knew her, but yet he had did this thing, this terrible thing. And then, I mean, he's like in there, I don't know what happened to me, I did this thing. But that's what happens to a lot of people, you know, we do things, and then later we regret it. So anyway, he has to go through this. And the girl said, I know him, but yet her worker, she was on the way to work, said, you better tell on this guy. Let him know, tell on him. So that's why he's in jail. They caught up with him on the way to work. He wasn't able to go to work. And this is what happens. We get caught up in the things, and we have to pray for those people, you know, that are out there, the young people. They're getting in. There's so much things that are going on in the world today that they're so interested that they can get into. And my son was one of those. But he spent 36 years, and I don't believe he should be in there that long. Sorry. He's spent his time, and he's been reformed. He's working, he's done things, you know, he said, finished his, he had, night school. He went through that, and he's reformed now. In fact, he's too much reformed again. I think actually when a person has been in, when they really don't need to be there, and they're kept there for so long, I think it actually does something to them rather than, to reform them. So we're praying and hoping everything, but it looks like now that this is going to be his year, that everything is going to work in his favor. So we're praying to God.
The convention ended with closing remarks from a young lady who states that her son has been incarcerated for approximately 36 years and feels that he has been rehabilitated for his crime and should be allowed to be let go. We got closing remarks from Mr. Joe Walls, and we look forward to the next convention, which will be scheduled this year, anticipating sometime in June. I want to thank everyone for listening in on our coverage of the Accountability Convention that was held here in Newcastle, Delaware. We'll see you back here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Simone Love Reality Radio, Dead from Society, Alive for Profit, Voices of the Incarcerated. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.